family outings. I had to move out of my parents' house because I was constantly being forced to watch my 3 nephews. Last summer, we went on a family vacation to the seashore. I traveled with my parents, who paid for my hotel room. However, I had to share a room with 3 loud boys because my sister and her husband preferred a separate room. I was promised time to do my own thing throughout the vacation, but I ended up needing to help with the kids. I protested to everyone about it and was told that I was there for free. We only did one thing I wanted: visit an art gallery. I enjoy doing this anytime I'm at the coast, but the kids found it dull. This year, my parents have a beach trip planned for June, and they figured I'd be riding the same route as last year. I refused. I stated that I would drive myself and pay for my own hotel stay to have my own room. My parents were surprised and attempted to remind me of the cost. I told them not to worry. I have a nice job and a decent operating automobile, so I can easily afford it. That's when the but began. I enumerated the reasons why I will drive alone and pay for my own room. I want to enjoy my vacation as an adult rather than being treated like a child, like I was last year. My parents informed my sister, and she called to yell at me, saying I'd be spoiling the holiday if I was off doing my own thing while she had to wrangle her 3 boys. I ended myself ranting at her, pointing out how all she did last year was drag me into her mess. I didn't get to do much of what I wanted and was seen as the bad guy for simply wanting to go to an art gallery. I'm a grown man who deserves his own vacation. My sister has stopped speaking to me, and my parents are still trying to persuade me to ride with them to keep the peace. I am still refusing, but the pressure is getting to me. Am I a jerk for not giving in? I know they'll struggle if they don't have someone to aid them. Edit. My sister, who appears to be a Reddit lurker, saw my post less than an hour after I wrote it. She's furious with me and upset that no one in the comments agrees with her. She went on a rant about how difficult it is to be a parent to triplets, and how the least I could do was help because I am young and unmarried. She stated she needed a break. I kept my position, and now she is contacting our parents to get them involved. I expect a call from them any minute. Update. Now that I'm off work, I can tell you more about what happened. To put it simply, it is over. My sister got our parents involved. They glanced at my post and were startled by the number of comments. Yes, they're upset with me for writing here, but I reminded them that if they'd just listened to me from the beginning, I wouldn't have had to. I'm tired of the keep the peace mentality that makes me a sacrifice for my sister. In turn, they went off on her, and the entire vacation was canceled. The hotel hadn't been booked yet, but my parents are bickering with my sister, who is blaming me, and my nephews are sobbing because they won't be going to the beach. My sister contacted me at lunch and hinted that I have no life, therefore I have time to help her. I filmed that and informed our parents, which is what they are currently fighting about. Small update. I was not going to update again, but here's a little more. My parents claimed they would never force me to babysit my nephews again and agreed that what happened last year was unfair. They're currently furious with my sister for telling me that I should help her since she believes I have no life. My sister is playing the victim, while my brother-in-law is mainly out of the picture, spending his time at work. Thank you to everyone who commented. You made my day. Update 1. My parents apologized, but my sister didn't, at least not first. I created this throwaway account a week ago to see if I was the jerk. It turned out that I was anything but. I have too much to say to publish an update on AITA, so a friend suggested I come here. Posting on the jerk, literally opened a Pandora's box among the family. Basically, my parents and older sister were extremely comfortable with me assisting with the care of my young triplet nephews. I didn't leave home until I was 22 since I was attempting to save money while also attending college. A scholarship covered a lot, and living at home protected me from going into debt because I was also working part-time. I am very grateful for this. However, after college, everyone treated me as if I had limitless free time and persuaded me to accompany them on a family trip. During this so-called vacation, I was compelled to babysit my 3 6-year-old nephews. I had to share a motel room with them, and trust me, those youngsters didn't listen to a word I said. They did not behave the first night until I contacted their mother twice. Even so, I was considered the bad guy for wanting to do other things on the trip. It seemed as if it wasn't something the entire family enjoyed. It wouldn't happen. This was highly hypocritical because I too am family and was not involved in the voting. You can bet I discussed this issue with my parents following my previous post, and they admitted they were incorrect. After that dreadful vacation last year, I decided it was time to move out, and I did so before the summer was up. This astonished everyone because I gave them no notice. I obtained a terrific job very immediately after graduation owing to an internship, and I utilized the move as an excuse to reduce my commute from 45 minutes to 15. My sister despised it the most because it meant no more free babysitting on weekends, but she still attempted to force me to do it. I caved occasionally, usually after being tempted with pizza, and this became the new normal. But then, last month, my parents revealed plans for another family trip to the same location down the coast, and they essentially wanted everything to proceed the same way. I quickly recognized it for what it was, a trap. I knew that if I rode with my parents and allowed them to pay for the hotel rooms, I would be taken advantage of again. So I casually mentioned that I would drive and pay for myself, and that's when the storm began. When my parents realized they couldn't entrap me like previously, they turned to borderline begging, and my sister practically tried to force me to go along with the flow by gaslighting. Newsflash, I didn't. After refusing to give in to my sister's demands, I made the Am I the Jerk article following days of pestering. My sister discovered the post in less than an hour. What followed was Pandora's box. Initially, the family was against me. My sister called our parents, and they called me when I still had some time to talk in the morning. My folks were on the phone with me as they read my post. I inquired if they thought anything in the post was a lie. They skirted the issue by calling the piece an exaggeration, but I pointed out other elements that proved it to be rather accurate. Then I instructed them to check the remarks. There were already way too many to read. I kept refreshing the website on my own computer and informing them how many comments there were. Then I informed them I was weary of their approach to keeping the peace by pressuring me to please my sister. I mentioned I was out of time and that we would have to resume later. My parents were absolutely frightened that hundreds, if not thousands of people had commented in a matter of hours. Later, I informed them that the numbers had nearly doubled and were continuously increasing, which only added to their anguish. I guess they were forced to reflect on their own behavior. My sister tried to call me while I was at work, but my phone was set to mute until my lunch break, so she could only leave messages and texts. She was persistent and got through to me when I was eating my lunch. The gist of the talk was that my post had pushed our parents away from her side, and they were now angry with her. My parents canceled the entire vacation after their dispute. Yes, they eventually admitted that they simply passed the blame out of embarrassment and accepted full responsibility. They told me that no justification could justify making me their go-to free babysitter when I no longer lived at home. They attempted to backtrack a little by pointing out that they never charged me rent when I was in college, but I reminded them that children do not beg to be born, and I was working hard to make my own way. Then I mentioned that my father had the same advantage because his parents allowed him to live at home for free while in college. That very much ended whatever dispute my folks had left. When my sister called me at lunch, I explained the situation to her, and she revealed her true colors. She intimated that I had no life and that my free time on weekends should be spent assisting her because she is exhausted and unable to go out without her children unless they are being watched. She is a stay-at-home mother whose husband earns a respectable living. They reside in a decent house that is owned rather than rented. To be honest, my nephews aren't really my responsibility. They simply imposed them on me and expected it to stay that way. My sister abruptly hung up on me, but I had recorded the conversation and played it for my parents later. They were outraged and basically went to war with my sister. She dug her heels in, blamed me, and then reaffirmed her idea that my existence should center around her. I told her that was the most narcissistic and entitled thing she had ever said about me. It took days, but her husband eventually intervened and pushed her to apologize to me. I'd never seen her so intimidated by anyone, but she was on the point of tears. It was later revealed that one of the reasons I was the go-to babysitter was that my sister did not trust others. It was never about the money, or was it? My brother-in-law assumed my sister was paying me for the time I spent after her children after I moved out of my parents' home. She didn't even give me petrol money, just enough money to get pizza for myself and the kids and keep the rest. For months, my sister had been shortchanging me. He yelled at her when this came out during her half-hearted apologies, and she was obliged to pay me what she owed, all from her own savings, which she appeared to be upset about. Then my brother-in-law apologized to me for his own passivity in allowing my sister to walk all over me and vowed to get a regular babysitter from now on. Yes, it will cost them a little money, but my sister will be able to reclaim her date nights. Then there was the family meeting the other evening. We all convened at my parents' place, and everything was laid bare, with apologies all around. My parents reinstated the family vacation, and I still intend to drive myself and pay for my own hotel stay. If my sister tries to relegate me to childcare duties, I'll stay in an entirely different hotel. I've said this, and she has guaranteed me that it will not happen. If I don't post again after my vacation in another month or two, you'll know everything is fine. Update 2. My sister contacted me and demanded that I take down my posts. Knowing how far it has spread has made her much more upset than she was previously. Having a family that is aware of your Reddit account has its drawbacks. My sister called me yesterday after I got off work to see whether any comments were still pouring in. She stated that she cannot take the negativity of looking at them because all of the comments are harmful to her. I was brutally honest. At least 10 comments come in every day, and the majority of them say the same thing about her. She began crying and requesting that I erase my Reddit postings, but I refused, telling her that she could cry to anybody she wanted, but the posts would remain since they were my promise that she would no longer treat me badly. After all, she felt like my life should revolve around hers, didn't pay me the babysitting money she was due, pocketed it for herself, and forced me to be the continuous babysitter on last year's family vacation, so I had almost no pleasure at all. Is it any surprise that people dislike her so much after she treated me so badly? My sister yelled and hung off when I indicated that the posts had already spread to other websites since I had been approached a couple of times to allow an article about my position to be written, as well as some videos. My parents immediately contacted and begged me to take down the post. I declined, claiming that I only did this because they did not stand up for me. This would never have happened if they had told my sister to treat me as an equal rather than a servant. I am not her butler, babysitter, or handyman. I am her freaking brother and a mature man. Wouldn't they be bored of this bullshit if they were in my situation? They agreed, but asked me to take down the posts. I refused, saying I'd keep creating more if they didn't start standing up for me when my sister cried to them. Allow her to clean up her own messes, because their enabling of her has led to this. I didn't father those children. I have my own life, a new career, and, ideally, a girlfriend. As there is someone I want to ask out. I am moving forward in my life and I will not be held back. They could either get out of my way or continue enabling my sister, but I warned them that the latter would end horribly for them. The only way for this Reddit post to stop is if the drama does. I've kept everything anonymous, and I have the right to express my reasonable frustrations. My mother cried, and my father remained silent. I replied, "Tears don't move me. You know what it will take to put an end to this. Quit enabling my sister." My sister called me again, yelling that our parents had informed her they were no longer dealing with this and that she should figure it out on her own. Oh, and they told her to be kinder to me too. I imagined her eye twitching as she shouted within after hearing that. Be friendly to my little brother. What's this? Should I search it up on Google? Yeah, I was that sarcastic to her, but it made her weep too. When I hung up, my brother-in-law called me later to hear my side of the story. He was upset that I was still posting and that it had made his wife cry. I explained everything to him, and he promised to talk to my sister again. I'm hoping the drama stops here, but the family vacation is still scheduled for late June. I've already booked my room and requested a day off from work so that we can all travel on Friday. My room is also not near the ones that my parents, sister, Bill, and nephews will use. In actuality, it is not on the same floor. When we go to the shore, if it is not a family activity, I will go where I want and do whatever I want. You can guarantee I'll visit those art galleries, eat local cuisine, and simply relax for a change. Update 3. After the family vacation. The family vacation has come to an end, and as expected, some good and terrible things happened. The good news is that my parents refused to let my sister force me to babysit. Oh, she did try. The bad news is that my sister attempted to find out which room I was in, but she failed and got into trouble with her husband again. To begin, I informed the hotel ahead of time that they were not to disclose any of my personal information to anyone who inquired, with the exception of the police in the event of a major incident. They told me over the phone that they wouldn't tell anyone. On the day of our vacation, I left earlier than the rest of the family. I knew they wouldn't be able to move as a group until 10 a.m., so I left at 9 a.m. Check-in wasn't until 1 p.m., so I wanted to get a jump start. I sent out an FYI group text and took off like a shot to make the 3-hour drive. My parents were furious because they had planned a family brunch on the way, but I pointed out that I had never been informed of this, so it was canceled in favor of fast food, as I had intended. I arrived at the hotel too early to check in, but I informed the desk staff that I was there to ensure that neither my parents nor my sister received any of my information. They claimed they don't do it, but I told them I know it does happen on occasion, so I'm covering my ass. I informed them that they might be dealing with my mother, sister, and 3 potentially weeping sons attempting to guilt them at the desk, and they should not give in. I wanted to know if they tried anything. They clumsily promised me that no one else would have access to my room. Then I decided to go out and get some food. When I returned more than an hour later, there were my parents' cars and Bill's large SUV. I walked to the desk to check in, first ensuring that the foyer was clear, which it was. I asked the clerk whether my family had inquired about me and where I was staying at the motel. They did, but the clerk refused to inform them. My sister supposedly tried to press it, but her husband silenced her. I checked in, walked to my room, and called my parents. I didn't disclose anything they tried with the cashier, and they also didn't mention it. Then we all got together as a family to tour about. My sister once asked me to watch her kids for a moment, and I said, hell no, since I knew precisely what she was doing. She'd pretend to be gone for a moment before disappearing for an hour. I called her out, and her husband warned her to quit trying to force me to care for their children. What did my sister do? She just started bawling on the spot, claiming she needed a break. Her husband chastised her, stating he was exhausted but didn't complain. My mother gave me a terrible look, so I went up to her and told her that if she believes I should be monitoring those kids, I'm leaving this family vacation right now. It is not my job, and I am weary of her and my sister acting as if it were. That made my mother weep as well, and she just kept saying, "You're right," over and over. This is another old ploy of hers. She tries to appear miserable in order to guilt me. But I simply said, "I am right," and walked away. My mother and sister did not try anything else for the remainder of the day. When we returned to the hotel after dinner, my family crowded the elevator, but I didn't join them. They questioned why, and I replied that I would wait for the next one. My sister stared at me, knowing exactly what I was doing. Then I sat in the lobby for 15 minutes, watching YouTube on my phone before taking the elevator up. I was on a different floor, on the opposite end of the hotel. I had a wonderful night, and the next morning, we all went out to breakfast, but I made sure they left first. I was the last to leave, just as I had been the previous night. Breakfast went well, and then I said that I was going to do my own thing for the day. My mother brought up plans to go to the aquarium and a couple of other places, so I agreed to meet them there, but the rest of the day was mine until family dinner. They accepted this, and the day went well. Back at the motel that evening, however, my sister caught me leaving my room. She must have been stalking the entire floor looking for me. I returned to my room to relax a little before supper because I was exhausted after walking so much. When I left my room to join them for dinner, my sister was just down the hall. She tried to corner me and accuse me of ruining her family vacation because it was now no different for her than being at home, with her kids to manage. I nicknamed it Bullpit because my parents were quite helpful to her. Then I informed her that I was sick of being her scapegoat, and it was already finished, so leave me alone and get on with your life. Then I began walking, while she yelled, "Hey, I'm trying to talk to you." I told her I didn't care and was going to supper. She accompanied me to the elevator, and we said nothing to one another. I didn't keep quiet about it though. I told my parents and brother-in-law that my sister had stalked me to find my room. She was scolded as a child. She had a pity party, but I encouraged her to stop it and grow up. The days when she could impose her will on me were over. Then I left the lobby and got into my car. This time I was the first one at dinner. When everyone else arrived, my sister appeared depressed, but nothing was spoken about what had happened before, which was good with me. My sister avoided making any contact with me during the evening. This time, I didn't care about riding in the elevator with the rest of them, and I told them straight out that unless there was an emergency, no one would come knocking on my door. I hung a do not disturb sign for a reason. Everything went well on the final day. My sister and mother didn't disturb me at all. They had fully succumbed by this point. Yes, I did play with my nephews throughout the vacation. I am not a complete jerk. I did not stonewall them. I continued to be the fun uncle, but not the babysitter uncle. The children didn't appear to care. They just wanted to play. I also bought each of them a small baggie containing crystals and polished stones to take home as a souvenir. My sister and her husband had some minor arguments, but I didn't pay much attention to them. Overall, I'd call the vacation a success since it finally got home for my mother and sister that the old way of doing things with me was done, and I now have my own life. Update 4. Mother and sister viewed my last post. They don't know when to leave well enough alone. Hey mom and sis, I told you that if you didn't stop, I'd go back to Reddit, and here I am. The short version is that when my mother and sister saw my last post, they freaked out. My sister had been following my account for days, knowing I would post. So what did she expect? That I'd simply say everyone had a wonderful time. She called and cried, claiming that I made her look like a bad mother. I responded, "Well, if the glass slipper fits." My sister continued to argue with me, but I asked her to point out any lies in the post. She attempted multiple times, but I pointed out that every detail was accurate. So what does she do? She calls mommy. Then my mother arrived at my door and demanded that I erase all of the posts. I told her no, and now I have additional ammunition. I ended up making her leave in tears. Later, I called my mother and father and simply told them that their enabling of my sister was the root cause of the prior family dynamic. I'll never go back to the way things were, so if they have any hope left, I'm extinguishing it forever. My parents then begged my sister, for the love of God, stop blaming me and leave me alone. They can't handle the stress of my revenge anymore. My sister had a literal no one loves me pity party, and my parents had to bring her back to reality. My brother-in-law hasn't called. I believe he's being neutral, but this can't be good for his marriage or my familial connection to him. Out of respect for my brother-in-law, I apologize, but your wife pushed me too far. Currently, my parents are asking that my sister get treatment since she cannot be a mother while also juggling her old habits. Woman up, as they say. In any case, I hope this will be my last post. Do you hear that, sis? If you don't stop thinking I should have been your personal slave, babysitter, watchdog and so on, and continue to act as if the entire world is against you because you can't lord over me, we can't be together. If you're willing, maybe we can get along and move on from this bullshit. Do not give me a reason to write anything else. From now on, I will only publish stuff about myself and the treatment I receive from others. Treat me as a nice human being, and this will be over. Capiche? Update. My parents and I had a long conversation in which they apologized, and we've decided that I'll keep my distance until Thanksgiving. I also had a man-to-man conversation with my brother-in-law last night over several cold beers. He warned my sister that she needed counseling or he would leave her, and they are currently looking for a counselor. He also told me that while my sister was an absolute devil to me at home, she is a really caring and endearing wife, albeit she admits that she enjoyed being an only kid. We are over a decade apart in age, so my sister harbored hatred for a long time and allowed it to build up. She's accepted that she does need counseling, and they'll go as soon as it's scheduled. They've also recruited a certified babysitter to care for my nephews. Aside from that, my brother-in-law stated that he was unhappy with me but did not intervene when I needed him, so we agreed that this was all simply a horrible situation that needed to be resolved. We're going to let it slumber in peace from now on. Finally, these posts helped me get a girlfriend. After reading them, the girl I loved suspected it was me and was waiting for me to say something. We'll be out on our first date tonight, so I want to thank everyone here for their overwhelming support. I truly needed it. I discover father-in-law is a pedophile, decide to divorce after wife defends him and shuns sister who spoke out. Original post. My wife Jessica, 32F, and I, 30M, have been married for 2 years and are trying for a baby. Jessica has an older sister, Mary, that she isn't close to. She told me that they had a huge falling out over some family drama and just don't speak anymore. I asked a few times about the entire situation, but she would say she doesn't like talking about it and doesn't think it's important. It was Jessica's brother's birthday yesterday and we were all over at his house to celebrate. Mary made an appearance and there was a lot of drama. Long story short, she called Jessica and her brothers out for still associating with their dad when they know that he is a child molester. No one was paying her any mind and I was really confused on what the hell was going on. When Mary left and Jessica and I went home, I asked Jessica what the hell happened. She said that when they were kids, Mary used to claim that their dad used to molest her. I asked if it's true and Jessica was stuttering a lot. She said she knows her dad used to do bad things but that Mary cut them all off when she turned 18 and moved out. I asked if she's admitting that she knows her dad was a child molester and did things to his own daughter. She said he doesn't do it anymore and he was just in a really bad place in his life, and he apologized to Mary, so there's nothing else anyone can do for Mary. I was honestly appalled. I also feel so terrible for Mary. Jessica made it seem like Mary did something wrong and deserved to be basically exiled from the family. I could have never imagined that this is what happened. I asked if she expects me to now be willing to have that man around our future children, and she started shouting at me, saying I'm judging him off something that happened 2 decades ago and whether I like it or not, he's going to be our child's grandpa and he will be in their lives. I said if she insists on it, I think we need to hold off on having kids and have serious conversations about it. She's extremely angry at me, but I don't know how I could better react, to be honest. This feels like a huge deal that she is minimizing. AITA. Relevant comments. Commenter. NTA and run? Please talk to someone from RAIN. They are an organization for victims of sexual assault. This is not something minor like occasionally being crabby with your kids on the mornings you have a migraine. This is a crime. I know a victim of child sexual abuse, and many years later and thousands of dollars in therapy, this woman is still hurting. You need to get out now. OP, I wish I could accurately describe how Mary looked and sounded when she was going off on her siblings that day. It actually sent shivers down my spine. She looked so angry but so defeated at the same time, all while they were all looking at her like she was crazy. I still can't wrap my head around it. I want to reach out to her and check if she's alright, but I don't know how appropriate that will be. Commenter: NTA, someone who has glossed over child molestation. Would she want to leave a future child of yours with grandpa for the night? That's chilling. And once you have kids, even if you divorced her for this later, you couldn't get full custody over this if grandpa never went to prison for it and isn't a convicted sex offender. It's awful all the way around. I can't believe you've been married 2 years before you even heard this story. OP, that's exactly what I was thinking. He never went to prison. Never been reported to the police at all, and there's no proof of what he did, so I would have no case and no power to keep him away from our children. I don't want to feel helpless about what happens to my children. I don't want to fail them like that. I don't think I should even have them with her at any point now that this has all come to light. Commenter: and I bet she did everything she could to hide this from him their whole relationship. OOP, I think this is a huge part of why I'm so angry at her. She had so many opportunities to tell me. There are instances where she had to have actively gone out of her way to keep this entire thing from me. And if Mary hadn't shown up to their brother's birthday party, I would have still been in the dark. Top comment: pedophiles rarely retire. Update: it's been nearly a year since my initial post, so I thought I would give an update. A few days after my original post, I sat Jessica down and told her how I was feeling. I told her I'm not okay with what she and her family had done to Mary. They knew what their dad had done to her but still chose to take his side and make Mary look crazy. I told her I'm also not okay with brushing her father's crimes under the rug. She was quiet and didn't say anything. She didn't try to defend herself or her family. She was just staring at me in a very chilling way. Almost like she was indifferent to whatever I had to say and just wanted it to be over. I told her I needed time to myself and I would leave and think about what I wanted to do. Suddenly she was paying attention. She seemed shocked and panicked. She started begging me not to leave, saying I'll get over it in a few days when we get back to how we usually are and things settle down. She said all families have skeletons in their closet and that this can't define our marriage. I said no and I left the house for a few days. I ignored all her calls and those of her family. I reached out to Mary on Facebook. I wrote her a lengthy message about how I had no idea all she had been through and that I'm so sorry for how her family treated her. I told her to reach out to me if she ever needs anything. She got back to me and asked if we could meet for coffee. We met up the day after. At first it was small talk, then she asked if I would be okay if she told me her version of events. I said of course I would, and she spoke to me about it. Everything her dad did and how her family treated her after she told them. I felt physically sick. She even told me stories about how Jessica told her friends that Mary has a mental condition that causes hallucinations, and that just in case Mary starts rumors about their family, that's why. A lot of people still believe Mary has a mental condition because of Jessica. I knew after that talk that I had to end things with Jessica. I went over to our house and told her I want a divorce. I told her I cannot stand the thought of being her husband and a part of their disgusting family. All she did was cry and ask all this for her. I knew then that she hadn't changed. She was still the same person that did all of those things to Mary, and she was still doing them. We're still not officially divorced, but we haven't been together since, and we are going through the process. It's just taking longer than I thought to get it finalized. Mary and I became friends. I invited her to a birthday dinner my family was hosting for me, and she hit it off with my cousin. He's crazy about her, and she seems really happy with him too. He keeps asking me if it would be too early to propose, and I have to tell him to not scare her away, lol. But they have a really wholesome relationship, and I'm really happy for them. As for me, I'm just surviving. Divorces are tough, but I know I made the right choice. Thank you to everyone that responded and gave me advice. I really appreciate it. My best friends and wife forgot my big moment, and now I'm struggling to cope with the betrayal. Pretext: I completely understand there are much greater tragedies out there than what I'm about to describe. Need to write this out and appreciate any feedback or strategies. Myself, my wife and friends from college, including best friend and his wife, have been doing a college football pick'em league for the last 12 years. It's for fun, but I'd say most everyone takes it somewhat seriously. Since we've had the league, different people won, but for 6 years in a row one particular guy kept winning. Each year, we have a big tailgate party at a game where the winner of the previous year is honored with a speech and trophy. Last year, we even arranged for a surprise cameo to be played at the tailgate for the guy who won his 6th in a row. I broke his streak last year and won the league, But I was also the person who typically got the trophy and arranged the cameo or some of the other cool things we've done. So yesterday was our big tailgate, and it was my chance at being recognized as the person who won the previous year. A few hours in, my wife had a few drinks and said, "I don't even know what we're doing this year for. Person who won 6 years in a row." Then I said that actually I had won, and her whole face changed. Our friend standing next to her turned white as a ghost. First they laughed, then said, "No, wait, it was you." I realized that until that moment it hadn't occurred to them, or anyone, to do anything. There was no trophy, speech, anything. My best friend quickly gets told by my wife that they forgot to do something and says nothing. Can't make eye contact. Gets worse for me. After it sets in, I'm in the bathroom an hour later. I walk out and some people start clapping, because my wife had awkwardly arranged for the crowd at the party to do something. It's worse, because the guy who won 6 years in a row and had been a recipient of some cool stuff is laughing hysterically that everyone forgot to do anything. I'm just sad. I don't really want to talk to my wife. She gave me a very short apology this morning and offered sex to cheer me up. Made it worse. Drove 6 hours home crying here and there, wondering how a group of people I love and care about would drop the ball. Send a text out to some saying how shitty it was to be forgotten. Sucks. I'm sure tomorrow I'll be less sad. Relevant comments. Comment 1. You're the planner. You're the one that keeps people together and makes sure no one or thing is forgotten. So when you don't do all the work, no one else does. It's really crappy they forgot to celebrate your win. You deserved a hurrah and they let you down. Really sorry, OP. Congrats. Comment 2. They did drop the ball, and then handled it really inappropriately. Sincere apologies were needed ASAP, and then making it up to you. I'd truly join another league just to take your mind off it and detach a little from that scene. Even if they don't do celebrations, you're the planner of the group that still isn't cool. I hate football, but this got me worked up. Comment 3. Everyone likes to accept rewards and praise, but not everyone likes to return the favor. OP went out of their way to make sure whoever won had a good time and felt special, for 6 years, and got nothing in return when it was his time to shine. And to top it off, his wife is trying to downplay it and act like he's overreacting. Feels bad. Least they could do is apologize, especially the MF who laughed after OP is the one who made his win special in the first place. Comment 4. Next time your wife is upset, offer her sex to cheer her up. Comment 5. This isn't stupid at all. You're validated in feeling how you do, and it's shitty as fuck that your friends and wife didn't recognize how important this was to you. I totally get it. It isn't about fantasy football. It's the pretense of the entire situation. Honestly, if it were me, I would tell my friends via phone call or face-to-face, not text, and tell them how it made you feel unappreciated as a member of the friend group, as well as how it hurt how they reacted after realizing you were the winner. Not because it was over a game of fantasy football, but because this is clearly something you all put effort and emphasis into for multiple years, and there's no excuse for just brushing you off. I would also tell your wife how it made you feel with offering sex. Sex isn't something to be rewarded or withheld, and that set off smoke alarm bells for me personally. You deserve to be surrounded by people who appreciate you the same way you do for them. This isn't something to accept. It's important that you say something. I know it's uncomfy, but it's worth it. Sending you love, OP. Thank you very much, really. I teared up that anyone felt sympathetic. I'm in my house and feel like I'm on an island by myself. Update. It's tomorrow, after a night where I slept in the guest bedroom. Late last night I got an email apology from the girl who turned white when she found out. My wife woke up at 6 to get ready for work, and I was up helping kids get ready for school. She wanted to talk, and asked if I could talk also. I was half awake and didn't have any thoughts put together. The first thing she says is that I need to keep perspective. She said that it's not as if she cheated on me, she forgot something big, but there are much worse things that could have happened. I didn't respond. She asked how long she was going to be punished for this, and I just responded by saying it wasn't all about her. She is visibly frustrated and I'm too afraid to say something that will ignite her. I feel like she's desperate for me to say anything. I realize she's not comforting me or trying to understand. She wants full resolution before we have to take kids trick-or-treating tonight. That's it for now. She texted good morning, and I haven't responded. Relevant comments. Comment 1. When the planner doesn't plan, shit doesn't get done. I am sorry that your lame-ass friends didn't treat you well by remembering to celebrate your win. I'm even more sorry that none of them had the guts to come clean and apologize in front of the group for being such a shitty friend. And finally, to the guy that laughed and who no one shut down when he was, please accept my 2-finger salute over the internet. Now that I've established that I'm firmly on your side, I ask you, what do you want to have happen now? Think long and hard about what it is that you want. Yes, this whole fantasy football thing is shitty, but what sort of friends are these guys outside of this situation? Would you call them if you needed help moving? And would they come? If you suffered a real tragedy, would any of them be another shoulder to cry on? If you have kids, or were to have kids in the future, would you invite these people to be a part of your child's life? If these people are merely the college fantasy football bros, then maybe you need to consider letting them all go. You've devoted considerable time and effort and maybe money into making these events fun for them, but when the time came for them to return the favor, they didn't care enough to get the job done. I don't blame them for not being more sincere in their apologies on the day this all went down. By your account, they were all caught flat-footed, and it's hard for most of us to admit our mistakes and apologize properly when we're still processing what an asshole we've been. Have any of them reached out since? Only you can decide how much these people mean to you and whether you want them in your life going forward. If I were you, I would write a huge screed about everything I'd done for the group over the past years, trying to make this event a yearly spectacle. I wouldn't cuss or throw around insults, but I would make it very clear to everyone that this event is so much fun every year because of my hard work. Then I'd end it with how disappointed I was that none of them saw fit to return the favor when I was the winner. I would absolutely point out that the previous winner laughed and was a complete jerk, and that it was shitty of them not to shut that noise down, but I'm petty like that. Maybe you're not that petty. I'd fire this off into the group chat, or whatever you guys use to communicate, and see what happens. Maybe you'll get a ton of heartfelt apologies, and they'll plan an extravaganza in your honor, and all will be well. Or maybe you'll get back a bunch of hate, and you'll see their true colors. Either way, you'll have your answer as to what sort of friends they really are. Once you've sorted the friend situation, you'll need to sort things with your wife. I have a lot of questions for her, and I imagine you do too. Why didn't she organize something to celebrate your win, for starters? The wife might be something that requires marriage counseling, but only you two can determine that. OP, I don't know. I don't want anything. As of this morning, I'm just wanting to not have this tension with my wife. But I'm kinda stuck on feeling let down, and she's supposed to be the person that doesn't do that. Comment 2. Is your wife always as shitty as she seems here? OP, no, she's great and a wonderful partner. But one major part of her personality is that she hates any feeling of having done something wrong. It's like she becomes a different person. Comment 3. So, bad sex and a weak apology is how she makes up for it. Comment 4. And then getting upset at OP for feeling hurt and making it about herself. I'm leaving my boyfriend after 2 years together because of his prenup demands. Why I chose to walk away from a relationship that felt one-sided. I'm 34F, breaking up with my boyfriend, 34N, because of a prenup. I've been with my boyfriend for about 2 years. Everything is going well and we love each other. We've been discussing marriage and he mentioned he would not marry me without a prenup. We discussed this in detail, and I did not like what he proposed. His family owns a lot of property, land, and has lots of savings. After marriage, he wants me to move into one of the houses his parents own. I told him I'm uncomfortable building a life and a family in a house I have no ownership in, and he didn't understand. I told him I'd prefer to rent a place together, or we can live temporarily in one of his parents' houses and look at property together, but he refused. He said he liked the houses his parents and he already owned. He said he would not buy other property. He said he would not sell any of his property to buy one with me. He told me if I wanted to own property, I could save up money by living in one of these properties and invest in one myself. Problem is, he would be entitled to half if we divorced, since my purchase would happen after marriage. He told me I could pay his parents' rent if I feel like I don't belong on the property. He told me I could buy half of the house we live in from his parents. Problem is, I don't like the houses that him or his parents own. They also have a lot of stuff and I feel like there's no space for me. I want to look at houses, I want to pick the place I live in, and I want to do it with my partner. I've made this clear to him over and over, but he won't budge. He earns more than me, and he has more assets than me for sure. He made it clear he was afraid I was a gold digger, and he wanted to protect himself and his family's assets from me, which I can understand. This whole thing has made me feel very weird. This topic has come up before, and it has always made me feel very small. It makes me feel like all he cares about are his assets. It makes me feel like he wants me as long as I fit into the life he already built and doesn't care to build one with me. It makes me feel like a gold digger. He has enough money to retire right now and live comfortably. I don't. He basically told me that whatever money he earns now, he can spend, so he won't be investing in too much anymore. He expects our earnings and our savings after marriage to be split, which I feel off about. I'm sure this is normal for some people. I'm sure other people would be happy to be with someone who was well off. I am not. I want someone beside me building a life with me, not someone who has built a life with his parents and wants me as long as I behave and fits into his life, which is how he's been making me feel. So I'm leaving him. I welcome opinions on this. But yeah, it's been too long that this has made me feel off about our relationship. I'm protecting my peace and leaving him with all his houses and money. TLDR, BF and I are talking about marriage. Boyfriend and his family are well off. He wants me to live in a house I don't own, and doesn't want to look at houses with me. Wants half of post-prenup assets. So I'm leaving. Relevant comments. OP adds context to the prenup talk during their relationship. No. He mentioned prenups very early, and I would keep asking him about the details, but he would keep it very vague, and assure me we would work it out when the time came. I never asked him about his assets, and I never actually knew how much assets his family had. The only things I knew were from some of his one-off comments about certain assets. If he mentioned this tenant or that tenant, or this thing they have to repair, etc., etc. I had also initiated these conversations. He mentioned wanting to live with me and work towards marriage. I figured then that time had come. This is when I sat him down and asked him what he expected from me, what he wanted, and to clarify the conditions of any prenups he wanted to propose. He still tried to dodge my inquiry. It took so long for me to pull this information out of him. I guess I did wait 2 years, but marriage talks seemed like the right time to push him to discuss it. Update: so many things have happened. This is a bit of a rant, and I know I'm missing parts, but I'll try to cover the important bits. Before I start, here's some important context. I have a stable and rewarding career, and though I don't earn as much as him, I am very happy with what I can afford. My parents have always taught me that women should be independent, and I've taken that to heart. I live below my means, which has allowed me to put aside money for savings and investments. A lot of comments have mentioned that I should take the free rent and that it would somehow set me forward in life. But for me, giving up my sense of autonomy and control over my home, my safe space, is not worth the potential savings. I lived with my parents and saved aggressively until I was 30. So I am lucky enough to be in a position where I can comfortably afford rent or a mortgage by myself. Plus, he expected the living situation to be permanent. I would not move into a house owned by someone else just to save on rent. Would it be nice to save $2,000 a month? Sure. But most people pay rent, and I am not an exception. If I really wanted that, I could move back in with my parents. But again, autonomy is very important to me. Also, if he's this stubborn now, I don't see how this situation could be improved later after I already moved in. I could also counter the prenup and make it so all my accumulated assets stay mine, or put in a clause that I'll be compensated for any children we have, or put that I'd get alimony or at least have a roof over my head in case we divorce. But for me, that feels overly transactional. It also gives me the vibes that I'm going to be living with a roommate who I sleep with and might have babies with, not a partner. I prefer to feel like we're in it together. He can keep what was his, but I want to build up what is ours. Also, if everything is completely split, it'll open up a new can of worms. How will our expenses be split if I'm working and he's just chilling? What happens when we have children? He has money saved for them, but will I get a say in how we spend that money? I know these can be worked out, but this is not the type of marriage I want. I can't predict everything that will happen, and I don't think I can capture it in a contract. And it's already been so heartbreaking for me, I don't want to go through more. Anyways, yada yada yada. I'll just say that it felt like I was being stripped of my autonomy, stonewalled, and treated like a hostile. Okay, on to updates. So I told him I needed to end this relationship. I appreciated and truly enjoyed my time with him, but our financial values and the preferred married lifestyle just don't match. It was a quick and easy conversation TBH. I expected the breakup to be a bit of a process, not a one and done thing, since our lives overlap a lot. I'm also in contact with a lot of his family, so OFC, during this whole time, a lot of them got involved. But blah blah. Not super relevant to updates. Talk with his parents. Okay, I love his parents. I had a great relationship with them. I would go over to their house, we would have food, chat, watch TV. Sometimes I would go to the parties they host without my ex if he was busy. A few days after my talk with my ex, I went over to say goodbye. I didn't know if the prenup was family enforced or not, so I kept it very general and mainly focused on how the situation made me feel and what I was looking for in a relationship. His parents were shocked when I told them why I was leaving. I'm going to bullet point the rest. His parents really want grandbabies. However, my ex's younger brother and SIL do not want kids. They were so happy when I came into their lives and she found out I wanted kids. His parents had created their wealth together. With his dad being the major breadwinner for most of the relationship, his mom was shocked at what he was offering me, saying these aren't the values he was raised with. She had been effectively retired since almost 15 years ago, and she said ex's dad never made her feel uncomfortable because of the difference in earning potential. They told me that they built their assets for themselves and their children. They said that includes whoever their children decided to share their lives with. They have many properties. However, they also have enough investments that they can live off of those. They told me their plan was to sign over a house of our choosing as a wedding gift, or sell a house and give us cash so we could buy a house we both wanted. As they got older, they planned to evenly divide their properties between my ex and his brother, since they wouldn't want to manage the properties anymore and live off investments. Ex's mom said she would have made sure my name was on my ex's portion, especially since we were wanting kids. They mentioned investments will go directly into funds for grandkids after their passing. Maybe this is what my ex was referring to when he said his children would be set. Bit morbid though. Ex's mom told me that the mother of her grandbabies would be taken care of, and she wanted us to be on equal footing while raising a family. TBH, this conversation was kind of like a weight off my chest. I always loved his family and never felt excluded, but the prenup talks left me confused and hurt. What they said fit with what I knew from my ex and them before. I'd be lying if I said I didn't start imagining this life I'd talk to my ex again. I'll bullet point this too. Basically, he told me, his dad had joked before about how he hoped him and his brother would not find gold diggers, and that's where that comment came from. He felt responsibility to protect his parents' assets, since he didn't feel entitled to them. So by extension, I wasn't entitled either. In his culture, sons carry on the family line, so he felt he had to keep his assets in the family line, which I'm not part of, but any sons we had would be. Most of the assets he's worried about are under his parents' name, and he had never asked for their opinion on what to do. He just did what he thought he should be. He also said he isn't that well off, and that his assets shouldn't come between us. This is still confusing to me. Isn't this whole thing because he was well off, and wanted to hold on to what he had and not create a shared lifestyle? I think maybe he meant he didn't own much, and most things actually were under his parents' name. He felt he was punching above his weight with me, and was scared I would leave him. He was afraid I was with him because of his finances, since that was the only thing he had more of, whereas he said I am intelligent, hardworking, beautiful, blah blah. He was scared about moving forward with the relationship, but instead of communicating, he became defensive. To me, it seems like he said and did things because he was feeling deeply insecure. He had made a couple passing comments before about me being more beautiful than him, or how I'm more hardworking, etc., but I had always taken them as compliments, not self-deprecating comments towards himself. He's such a caring, funny, and intelligent person, just in a different way than me. Also, I know he's not as confident as he comes across, but I had no idea that his insecurities ran this deep. He also apologized over and over about how he didn't mean to make me feel like an outsider to him and his parents, and insisted that he wanted to share a life with me. He said his insecurities and fear got the best of him, and he didn't handle it well. He had taken advantage of my patience and lashed out because he felt inadequate and scared. It broke my heart, because I think all this could have been avoided. We've been through this song and dance before many times, where he would feel some sort of way, then act out as he's processing it. Until now, I always stay through it and we move on. But it's never gone on for so long. But I guess the issues we've faced before were smaller compared to mapping out our whole lives. I've pushed him to seek individual counseling and we've attended couples counseling together, but I can't force him to sit and identify his emotions or employ the tools we were taught. The prenup conversation happened over a long period of time. He had so many chances to pump the brakes and reflect on what he was saying, and simply just listen to me. But he didn't. He then sat in front of me saying that everything he said before was not what he meant. He said he would be happy to take care of me and our future kids. We could buy a house together, or rent if I wanted to, because now he wasn't scared about creating a life together. Completely opposite to everything he had been saying. But how unsettling is it that he seems so completely comfortable and confident in the hurtful words he previously said, and was okay with placing me in a very unequal position in the relationship, despite me continuously trying to articulate what I wanted, and how he was making me feel. He didn't even consider my side. Over months. I know I have a good deal with what his parents are offering, and I know him and I get along super well. But I'm not marrying his parents. I can't have his mom with us during every argument or life decision we take. Thinking back, I can count on one hand where we've run into issues, and he was able to address it without acting up. He's such a nice guy, but I can't be his garbage bin every time he needs to sort out his feelings. It's already worn me down. He's a grown man. He's intelligent and intuitive. He's had 2 years to learn how to communicate with me, and he's not. I honestly can't tell if what he said to me is genuine, or coming from his parents, or coming from a fear of losing me. I could give him the benefit of the doubt again and move forward with the relationship, as I've done in the past, but I'm tired. I think this is a fixable problem, but I also have not seen any improvement since we started dating. If anything, this prolonged experience has made me feel it's gotten worse. I will not make the mistake of investing in a man because of what he could be instead of who he is. If the last few months are a testament to how he handles stressful situations, I can only take things as they are and assume they won't change. This whole thing has left me sour. I don't need too much, but I do expect to be treated with love and support, even during times of disagreement. I cannot just forget the feelings and words I've felt and heard over the last couple of months. I can't just unhear and unknow that he is afraid I'm a gold digger. That was just one of many comments that really hurt me. I think life will have a lot more ups and downs, and I cannot imagine what kind of difficulties we will face if this is how we communicate, even after identifying it and working on it in therapy. For these reasons, I'm still choosing to walk away. Very diff from leaving because of a prenup, but it is leaving nonetheless. And TBH, this hurts more. I know it will hurt for a while, but I pray I'll be avoiding heartache and complications in the future. Who knows? If it was meant to be, maybe we'll find our way back. For now, I've told him and his family I need space and time. I know that it seems like I'm giving up a lot, but there are things I can't put in a post. I actually wrote the above quite early. But I didn't post because it didn't feel like it was over. But now after this time, I know it is. It's been tough, and it's only been a couple months, but I'm sure I made the right call. It's tough watching everyone coupled up and having children, but it is what it is. I'm proud of myself for leaving, and I'm slowly healing. Thank you everyone for your comments and DMs. Sorry I couldn't get back to everyone, but I appreciate you all. My entitled sister abandoned her 3 children, so I raised them. Years later, they offer me money as a thank you, but she demands it. Hello, I am 48F, and my younger sister, Diana, is 46F. Diana and I never got along well as youngsters. She was always snobbish and unpleasant to me, so we split up as soon as we graduated high school. I elected to continue my education, whilst she preferred to live with her boyfriend at the moment. It was lucky that her lover was wealthy, as our parents could never have afforded the rent for her to live alone. However, she made it abundantly obvious to our parents that she was unconcerned about their opinions on her life and would do whatever she wanted. So my parents never tried to stop her and instead let her go free. Diana had twin girls at 20 and a boy at 21 while living with her lover. My parents were pleased for her, but also anxious because she now had many responsibilities and no work. She was wholly dependent on her boyfriend's money to support her lifestyle. Diana never married her partner, which I believe was a mistake because she would have been entitled to alimony if they split up. They had to part ways after Diana discovered that he had been cheating on her. Thankfully, he provided the child support she was entitled to, but he chose not to be a father and signed away his parental rights. The girls were 3 years old at the time, but my nephew was only 2. After that, my sister was fully on her own and required all of the assistance she could get to maintain herself. Despite our sour relationship, I chose to assist her, primarily owing to pressure from our parents. At the time, I made a respectable living, but it wasn't enough to sustain all 4 of them. However, my parents and I gave a tiny bit of money each month, and they were able to make ends meet. She struggled for the first several months because she lacked a degree and work experience. She had to start at the bottom and work her way up, which forced her to dedicate a significant amount of time to her employment in order to grow rapidly. But this was difficult because she also had to consider her children, and she couldn't simply leave them at home. Hiring a babysitter was a possibility, but it was prohibitively expensive, so she was forced to rely on me or her friends. Our parents were also working and contributing financially to aid her, so they were unable to stay at home with the children. I was in the same predicament. She didn't have any friends who would take on the duty of minding her children while she worked because they all had their own lives and occupations. As a result, she was limited to minimum wage positions that allowed her to work flexible hours and return home quickly. This allowed her to avoid paying the babysitter to stay with her children for an extended period of time, which would have been prohibitively expensive. This condition persisted for a few years, and I believe Diana began to despise her own children because she saw them as hurdles to her success. She said that they were the only things preventing her from moving forward. I would pay her a visit on occasion, not for her sake, but for the sake of the children, to make sure they were doing well. I didn't have a nice connection with her, but I wasn't ruthless enough to let innocent children suffer because of their mother's poor decisions. So my parents and I would check on the kids on a regular basis. They were always complaining about Diana's mistreatment of them. She would chastise them for minor infractions and strike out at them simply for being children and trying to have fun. It was a dreadful existence for all of them, and I hoped I could help them by removing them from that place and keeping them with me, but I couldn't because she was the rightful parent and I had no legal authority over them. Furthermore, she received child support from her ex and was doing her best to make ends meet. I felt awful for her, but even worse for the kids. Diana started seeing other men, which made things considerably worse. Every time a relationship failed, she blamed her children. She was convinced that once her partners discovered she was a mother of 3, they would abandon their relationship with her. I believe it was because she never mentioned her children during the early stages of dating, only bringing it up after a month or 2, which appeared dishonest. I tried several times to explain this to her, but she was convinced that she was being rejected because she had children. She kept teasing them about it, reminding them of how their father had abandoned her and threatening to leave them as well if they didn't behave. The children were scared of her, and their childhood was defined by their mother's narcissism. This continued for years. Several times, I considered taking the kids and fleeing with them, but I couldn't. I could not petition for custody or denounce her because, while her actions were wrong, they did not justify taking the children away from her. So the scenario remained, and the kids were simply grateful to have me in their life. My parents were too elderly to be their pals, but I was always there for them when they needed it. They could never tell their mother about their issues, but they could always go to their aunt, which they did. Whenever they had problems with school, academics, or even Diana, they would come to me, and I appreciated their trust. It's no surprise that when they turned 18, they decided to leave their mother's house and move in with me instead. Now that they were no longer children, they could select where and with whom to live, and they chose me. Diana was clearly dissatisfied and had a lot to say. She stated she had squandered 18 years of her life raising these children, only for them to abandon her in the end. She was really unpleasant about it, telling me that if I had wanted to raise her children so badly, I should have stepped in sooner rather than taking over after the work was basically done. I wanted to tell her that she hadn't actually raised them. They had basically raised themselves because she was usually at work or out on dates with guys who eventually dumped her after discovering she had 3 children. She had no idea what her priorities should be, and it was clear why things turned out as they did. The children selected the person who had genuinely been there for them over the person who had always tortured and reprimanded them since she couldn't find anyone and was miserable in her life. It was evident that she had no idea she was harming them because she was suffering herself. However, I did not want to rub it in her face because I knew it must have been unpleasant for her, which is why she was lashing out at me. So I kept my mouth shut and that was it. After that, we didn't really communicate. Her children opted to leave her and live with me. Diana also chose to cut ties with all of us and cease speaking to anyone, including our parents. This was weird because they had done nothing to deserve it. I believe the fact that they hadn't chosen her side against me when my nieces and nephew opted to live with me irritated her, so she cut them off as well. It's been 7 years, and they're all doing well now. I don't know what Diana has been up to, but I know her children are doing well. My nephew attended medical school and is now a pediatrician. One of my nieces has a degree in literature and is now a teacher, and her twin sister has a hair shop. I assisted all of them in obtaining business loans and financed them to the best of my ability. I'm very proud of them because they've gone a long way from their previous home. They are now living apart. They only stayed with me for 4 years, and even then, it wasn't really like they were living with me because they were generally away at college and only came back on occasion. I believe they didn't want to return to Diana's home, where they didn't feel wanted. It's been 2 years since they all moved out, and I'm very thrilled for them. I never expected anything in return for what I did because I truly believed it was the right thing to do. They were just kids, and no matter how bad things were between me and my sister, I could never be callous to them. I've always had a soft spot for them, especially since I've never had kids or married. It wasn't my cup of tea, but for them, I wanted to be there as a parental figure because their father wasn't around. And, well, we all know who Diana was. They needed someone, and my parents were too old for the position, so I stepped forward. That is all I did. I never anticipated anything in return, but I am grateful that they are the type of children who think I deserve a gift of appreciation for what I've done. Even though I don't believe it was something that required compensation, I appreciated their gesture. About a week ago, I celebrated my 48th birthday with my friends and family, including my nieces and nephew. I had a great time, and my nephew was kind enough to organize everything for me. Despite my desire to pay for everything, he insisted on covering the costs because he is now earning enough money to do things for me and display his appreciation. After the party, the three of them sat me down to talk. They told me that now that they were all financially established, they wanted to express their gratitude by collectively writing me a check. I tried to explain that it was unnecessary because I was still working and could support myself, but they insisted. They claimed it wasn't about repaying a debt. They could never repay me for what I had done for them since it wasn't about money. It was about the encouragement and faith I had provided them, which they could never fully repay. This was their humble attempt to show their appreciation. I was deeply moved by their genuine act and wanted to share it on social media. I just wanted to thank them for everything they were doing for me. My sister and I hadn't spoken in years, so I didn't think she would care. I was blocked on every platform, and I assumed she wouldn't see it, so I felt it was fine. Diana had never followed up with us or inquired about her children's well-being after they had left home. Granted, it was they who broke up with her first and moved in with me, but that was her fault. The least she could have done was show interest in their lives and try to be a mother figure to them in order to make one for her faults. But, to be honest, she didn't seem to care about the loss of communication, so I figured she was all right. Anyway, following that post, I received a reply from her a few days ago. I wasn't expecting it because, as I indicated, we hadn't spoken in 6 years. However, I should have predicted that as soon as she realized her children were financially secure, she would start sniffing around like a bloodhound, trying to figure out how much money she could obtain from them. In her reply, she stated that she had seen my post and wanted to talk about her children. She recognized that she had made mistakes in the past and had not been a good mother to kids, but she felt compelled to give herself another shot. She claimed she had missed them a lot over the previous 6 years. I'm not sure how much truth there is in that statement because if she truly missed them, she could have contacted me at least once. She asked me to speak with her children and help bridge the gap between them, as they respond well to me. The timing was strange, so I ignored her message. However, when I failed to react, she called me in the evening, and I snapped. She insisted that I assist her in reconnecting with her children, but I refused. I was quite aware that she was merely pursuing their money, not because she truly cared about their well-being. If she truly regretted what she had done, she would have contacted them directly rather than talking to me. She couldn't let go of her pride and ego for a single second. She still expected her children to contact her, despite the fact that she was the one who had made a mistake. It was amazing how entitled she was. She tried to dispute with me, arguing that she wasn't pursuing their money and that it was offensive for me to suggest so. I assured her that I was not implying anything. It was so obvious. I felt appalled and repulsed by what she was doing. She then accused me of stealing everything from her, claiming that I had already stolen her children and was now stealing her riches. I informed her that I didn't need the money and was originally hesitant to accept the check, but now I was going to take it all because she didn't deserve it. Now she's crying on social media, telling everyone what I said and attempting to make me seem bad. Some of my relatives say I went too far with what I said, that I'm greedy, and that I owe her an apology, which is absurd. That is why I am here to inquire if I'm in the wrong for telling my sister that she does not deserve the money that her children have decided to give me. Update. As some responses advised, I recounted the situation with my nephews and nieces. They informed me they had heard about it from a few of relatives and had considered speaking with me but had not had the time. However, after I called them over and discussed it with them, they informed me that they believed I did the correct thing. My nephew was open about his views, stating that he had never considered of his mother as a maternal figure throughout his life. He always blamed me because she had never been there for him, and my niece agreed. He'd always been the most outspoken of the group, so it was predictable that this was all coming from him. My nieces were too emotional to speak, but he was quite angry and upset. He explained that Diana only spoke to me since she had never done the basic minimum for them. This was despite the fact that she was receiving child support from their father. And even then, she would humiliate them and make them feel horrible for merely existing, which was not their fault. They believe I did the right thing and have informed me that they will not contact their mother, regardless of what happens. They also believe that I should stand up for myself and explain my side of the story online now that Diana has decided to speak negatively about me on social media. They believe that this is the most effective approach to convey the message, therefore that's what I'll do. I'm delighted they opted to take my side in this because my parents are staying out of it and have stated that they don't want to get involved. Diana never spoke to them after her children cut her off, which I find unusual. My parents' polite approach to this problem strikes me as unusual, given that they have not communicated with Diana in the last 6 years. I was disappointed, but at least my nieces and nephews support me. Now many people have asked me why I did not petition for custody and have the children taken away from Diana if I knew she was a bad mother and was mistreating them. I mentioned in my piece that, while her actions were wrong, they did not constitute torture, abuse, or neglect. She was constantly harsh to them and wasn't emotionally present for her children. So while I could have filed for custody, it was quite improbable that I would have gotten the children into my care. Courts typically encourage families to keep together, and in this case, they had already lost their father. Their father had abandoned them, leaving them with only their mother as a biological parent. Naturally, the court would want the family to stay together. I knew that if I filed a petition against her or took legal action against Diana, she would ensure that I never saw them again. She would make certain that she took the kids far away from me. It was already improbable that I would have been able to take kids away from her and obtain full custody, so this would have put them in a dangerous situation. This is why I decided to play it safe by staying in touch with them and being available for them at all times. I'm not sure if it was the correct thing to do in the long term, but at the time, it seemed like the only option. Maybe there were other ways to deal with it, but it was all I could think of, so I did what I believed was right. It was difficult for me, and for years I debated whether I should file for custody or have kids taken away from her and rehomed. But there's no telling what might have occurred, and I figured it was better for kids to stay with their mother and maintain touch with me and my parents than risk anything in this circumstance. I hope this answers the questions most people had for me. Maybe I came across as the evil guy for what I did, but I don't care. I know the kids are doing well in their life, and I did everything I could to keep them happy and safe. I was always there for them, therefore I don't feel guilty about anything. Update 2. It's been a week since Diana's message, and I've received a lot of phone calls today from family and people who have spoken with her. They were pointing out my mistakes and scolding me. It was getting really tiresome, and I was swamped with work, which is why I hadn't been able to post sooner. But today, I decided I'd had enough. After a brief talk with my nephew and nieces, I decided to finally make a post that shared my side of the story as well as, in some ways, theirs. I don't think anyone in the family realized how much those kids had been through as children. How many taunts they had to endure every day simply because Diana opted to become pregnant early and drop everything for her boyfriend at the time. Even after that, she continued to blame others for her own actions and attempted to appear as if she was doing everything in her ability to do the best for her children. But, in actuality, she was never present for them. Since she was telling everyone that I had stolen her children from her and was now stealing a fortune from her. Now that her children were doing well financially, I felt people deserved to know the truth, not just her twisted version of events in which she was the victim rather than the person who tormented everyone. They had already judged me for a variety of reasons since they only knew her side of the story and sympathized with her. But in reality, I deserved to share my side of the story, as did her children. So I typed everything up a few hours ago and published the post. So far, she hasn't said anything to me, and the only texts I've gotten are from relatives who were judging me earlier. They have now abruptly changed their tune and are attempting to apologize for judging me too soon. But frankly, it means nothing to me. I simply wanted them to know the truth. I don't care what they think of me, but it was vital for me to speak the truth and share how Diana handled her children, which is why they are no longer in contact with her. Anyway, now that everything is finished, I am ready to move on from this. Honestly, I don't want anything to do with Diana anymore, and I was perfectly content for the past 6 years when she didn't contact me. I believe the same may be stated for her children as well. I don't understand why she felt the need to create so much drama. If she wanted money, she might have asked for it rather than pretending to want another chance at motherhood. Update 3. It's been a day since I wrote that post. Diana may have woken up today and decided to get back at me. Instead of contacting me directly, she became increasingly dramatic and began commenting on that post, attempting to make it appear as if I was lying. But it was not going to work. Obviously, as soon as she attempted to react, her children began commenting and responding to her, reminding her of particular episodes from their childhood in which she had been cruel to them. That lasted about an hour, and I didn't feel awful about it. Nobody else did, because my nephew, nieces and I were all thoroughly enjoying the process. They were utterly humiliating her, and there was no way she could get out of it since every single lie she tried to say to make me look bad was discovered. I'm glad I chose to do this on the weekend. Otherwise, we might not have been able to respond as swiftly. Anyway, that lasted about an hour, and then she began deleting her comments so that no one could catch her in her falsehoods. However, it was too late because many others had already noticed what was going on in the comments section, and I believe she began to be called out for her actions by others. She started erasing her comments and backtracking on everything she said, and then she blocked me. She also blocked her children. I'm guessing it was her way of surrendering, And I'm pleased she did because she would have lost in a fight with us. We clearly have the upper hand here, morally or otherwise. I believe deleting the comments would be the end of our connection, but she chose to contact me personally as well. She messaged me, saying she hoped I was happy now that I had presented her as the monster and everyone hated her. It was very ironic coming from her, because that was exactly what she was attempting to do to me first. She initiated it, and now when I wanted to return it to her, she is unable to accept it. I don't understand why individuals attempt to dish it out when they know they can't take it in return. Just don't cause any drama if you don't want to be held accountable for the results. Anyway, I disregarded that message, and that's what we're all going to do for the rest of our lives because she's no longer worth our attention. She has proven it.